Oh, they put him on IR. That's why. Oh man, Charlie Thomas is actually a decent linebacker, I believe. Right? Didn't he play linebacker? All right, so I'm going back and just kind of going over guys that have been released over the last, say, month or two. They're sitting out there. I'm just looking at that right now, and then we'll get into the thick of things. Oh, that's right. He blew out his knee. Oh, they took Griffin. Interesting. Philly's got Griffin. He hasn't been released since then. He's an interesting move tight end / H-back. Because although I do like Jaheim Bell, I thought he's probably the. I mean, if I was doing my grades, I think he had the highest value grade. But I think they're going to probably try to risk putting him through waiver wire and try to get him onto the practice squad at this point, because I'm not sure if he's like actually ready. It kind of comes down to injuries, right? So if you have a bunch of guys going into the year kind of beat up, so you're going to have to guys that you want on your 53, but they're kind of beat up, but you're not really sure if they're going to do they're going to be a week or two into the season before they're actually playing. That's kind of when that first initial 53-man roster is going to be might be really messy. So I think Bell would be one of those guys they're just going to hold their breath and maybe try to get through. I think Dial's going to be another guy they're going to do that with. Essentially, almost all their day 3 picks, minus Baker, could be potentially just hold your breath and hopefully they don't get picked up by somebody else. Then that's one of the problems when you're like, when you're actually drafting that high up, right? You're drafting that early in each round. Like you're picking up good guys. So now you're hopefully all those guys make it through, but other teams are gonna be looking at that and be like, oh, that Layden Robinson guy is actually pretty good. So I wanted to do that first, just kind of going over. I know Devron Harper's out there. I just saw that Jay Person. I thought he might be a potential guy to bring back, but looks like the Tampa Bay picked him up. So that's one of the guys that we released. That was an edge / outside linebacker. Just in case the Judon thing goes south. Another guy I was looking at was Bell, but he got picked up by the Lions, I think. Oh no, the Colts. Levi Bell. So that was another guy I was looking at. He's a really good defensive tackle / edge guy. D tackles out there. Let's do that. Let's do waiver wire targets first, I guess. Why is that going to that? I want this. Why are you not allowing me to look at this? Whatever your deal is. Nah, whatever. Hey, we'll get to it later. There's a decent amount of guys that might not make their 53-man roster that could be D tackle / pass rusher edge rushers. One guy that I would definitely look at is Scott Matlock, who's on the Chargers. He's one that to look at. I wish I can get. I don't know what's going on with this Excel spreadsheet here. There we go. So I've already started making this now. Austin Booker, after watching him play those 2 quarters we had for the what was that? Yeah, 2 quarters of the Hall of Fame game. I doubt he's going to make it through. But Javon Solomon, he might be a cut candidate. Cedric Johnson's pretty good. Jean Baptiste, I think he was a 4th rounder, so he might make it through. But if you're looking for guys that are edge rushers that are also kind of built that could be obviously a potential replacement or substitute for Judon and Barmore, I would highlight Miles Cole from Jacksonville. Also Gabe Hall. Now, Gabe Hall, they talked to multiple times. Patriots talked to him multiple times. He's like 6'5", just under 300. Super strong. Very. He actually I had him high on the list just because of draft him this year or get him in this year because if they didn't sign Rick Barmore. So a lot of these guys, like now that Barmore's out, a lot of those guys I was looking at that were like kind of bigger edge rushers / pass rush D tackles, kind of essentially very similar to Keon White. I was watching. So now they're kind of back in play. So if they don't make their 53, the Patriots might be able to snag them, especially there's several of them that they talk to. So again, Miles Cole, Gabe Hall would be another one. Eric Watts, again, like a 6'5" high. He's like 275, 280, I think. But the Jets brought in several pass rushers, so he might be a cut candidate. Nate Lynn's pretty good, but not different style. Mike Morris from last year, where was he? I just went over him. He's a bigger dude. Justin Blazek, he might be cut. Dylan Horton from last year. He's more of like, he would be, I had him as more of a Judon replacement, but he might make it, he might be cut. Some of my favorite edge rushers in general, like the Colts seem to be loading up on edge rushers. But they have Isaiah Land, who's more of a speed guy, but they also have Titus Leo, who's really good. And then again, there's Scott Matlock. I think I would put him as high on the list. If he gets cut, I would definitely bring him in. He's an awesome defensive tackle, but he played everywhere, basically from 0 all the way out to like 7-8 there for Boise State. Super strong, very powerful, good moves. Can play both as a clogger, but also obviously a pass rush from the interior and on the outside as well. So there's guys out there more. This is another interesting one. Philly just keeps loading up on defense. I would be interested to see if you can get Moro Ojomo out, if he's a guy they let go, or Brenton Cox from Green Bay. Now, interesting ones to keep an eye on would also be LeBron Ray, a former Patriot, Carolina, and then Perkins, who's at Denver. So I'm building up this list. We'll keep an eye on it. We have a few more weeks. Actually, we have like almost a month now to look for. But these are guys to look for. D tackles, haven't filled them in yet. But these guys are edge rushers that we might want to keep an eye on just in case the Judon thing goes south, or if we're looking for a bigger one to help out with Barmore. In terms of, I haven't gotten to my 1,000 list yet, but to make a video on that. But we're already out to. Let's zoom all the way out here. 500s. All the way out to 1,000 down here. Yeah. So it's another big class. I haven't put all of them in yet. The color coding is for how much I've watched them, and then the yellow ones are my favorites right now. So guys that I need to move up. This is semi-scaled out for... They're ranked-ish. Right now they're mostly ranked on how I see them as performing, not necessarily for the Patriots. That one, that's this tab right here. I have not really worked with as much as I should, so this is me ranking them out of how I see them and how I expect them to go overall for the league. So like I have some quarterbacks here that are probably gonna be up in the teens. I don't even think Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers are probably a top 50 in terms of talent, but they'll probably go in the first round just because they're quarterbacks. So that's where we're at. I still have James Pierce being my top guy overall. Same thing with Mason Graham. He's pretty solid. The other guy I'm really thinking about moving up a lot more is Deion Walker. If Barmore is done totally, he would be an interesting guy to go back for. 6'6", 330, absolute monster. Pass rush, but also clogging things up. I hate to say this, but if you lose Barmore, like indefinitely, this would be kind of the draft to thankfully be able to get one in the second round. I'm not sure if we would go after that in the first round. I think a lot of people, I'm 100% like, you listen to the media, and a lot of those guys are right. Like getting an offensive tackle, it's just enough's enough. I think we're really at that time where you just have to sit there and figure out who's going to be your left tackle. I know Caden Wallace can possibly do it, and I'll say this. Caden Wallace he doesn't really follow the perfect left tackle or right tackle archetype. Like, he's not, like, absolutely perfect as a left tackle in terms of build, and he's not this perfect for his right. Now, his demeanor and his ability to, like, produce, like, downhill hard runs, I put him as a right tackle in how he plays. So I wouldn't mind moving him back over there to the right, but if you're looking for that really good technical, like, left tackle, yes, Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks are essentially your top two guys. This is out of... I have Will Campbell higher, and I have to resort this. But, yeah, Will Campbell, if you watch him in terms of his footwork and the way he moves his hips and sets them, like, he anchors perfectly, but it's just how he shuffles them around. And he also fakes out, and he essentially jukes out edge rushers. So he's gone against the best. He did struggle against Will Anderson and Turner, Dallas Turner. He's had rough times against some of the really top-end edge rushers in the SEC, but the guy's pretty solid. Totally worth it in my opinion. Same thing with Kelvin Banks. He's solid. But I'll say this. This is where the scary part is. There are a decent amount of there's a solid amount of left tackles in the draft, but it's kind of similar to last year where your left tackle, you're going to have some really good left tackles at the top of the draft, and then all of a sudden you're going to have a boatload of like really heavy, gnarly right tackles. Actually, let's just go to this. This is not right at all, but these are my backups. These are not the top guys. These are the guys I'm looking at right now. These are guys who just returned last year, so they were eligible last year, that are coming back. So these guys are like definitely seniors, definitely in this draft. Almost all these guys are right tackles minus... Oh, Belton probably played left this year, and same thing with favored lead, but most of these guys are right tackles. Zion Nelson is interesting. Wyatt will probably play left too. So a lot of your top guys coming back are going to be, or your guys are definitely going to be in this draft class are right tackles. So these guys are definitely going to be in. And then minus, obviously, if they get injured. And then throw in any of these sophomores, now juniors, you have a very deep right tackle with some solid left tackles thrown in there. Now, are some of those guys going to like move over? Probably. It's pretty crazy. In terms of wide receivers, I have Tech higher than Luther. Luther is definitely very elusive, but he's not unguardable. He did a very good job at Missouri last year. I think he's going to be coming in, kind of be seen as number one. But for me, Tech McMillan is definitely the top guy, in my opinion, in terms of his abilities. Not only is he because of this, this is another thing, is that, like, is he going to have the better numbers than Luther? Probably not. But I think he might be drafted higher than Luther because he's really coming in at 6'5", 205, and he's probably going to play like a legitimate X receiver. Whereas Luther is 6 foot. He's if he is at 215, I mean he's very similar to Neighbors, but he's not Neighbors. Maybe he makes a step this year, but he plays very similar to Neighbors. He's very explosive, really good release packages, stuff like. I mean, he obviously is very shifty for his size, but he's 6 foot 215. That's not going to be what you want at the NFL level on the perimeter. But that 6'5", 205, yeah. And that's the other thing, which is, the Patriots in that position that have a top 5 pick. Do you go with the big-time name wide receiver, but then you also have to realize that, I just want you to look at the rest of the names that are in the wide receivers that are, larger than 6'5". It's kind of crazy, or over 6'3". It's kind of crazy. Let's see, we get down here. There's Torrey Horton. Actually, let's just search that. Amika. I'm wondering how he's going to have a year. He'll be the top guy at Ohio State. He's a really good Z potential. Evan Stewart, very shifty. He's working with Route God. I forget his actual name, but he looks pretty shifty as well. Bond is burner. Trey Harris, really good route runner. Torrey Horton, probably underrated just because he goes to Colorado State, but very slick. Wells, he's all right. Tez Johnson's solid, but Tez Johnson weighs like nothing. 5'11". There's Eric, 6'2". That's a big dude. This is kind of like if we can possibly get him in the 3rd round as a wide receiver, I'd be happy. So J. Michael Sturtevant, I don't know. If he has a breakout year, he might be a first rounder. But he's expected to run like a 4.3, high 4.3, low 4.4, 40-inch plus vert. My only thing about him is his hands is not as good as they should be. But really good X receiver there. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, 6'4". Moose Muhammad, he's 6'1". He's better than, I think he's probably going to be early day 2. I might have to move him up. Both guys from Kentucky are, so far in terms of spring ball, look really good. Antonio Williams, 6 foot. Oh, there he is, yeah. Dane Key, 6'3". They have him at 6'3", 195. Bernard. I thought he was supposed to transfer, but I guess he stayed. He was in the portal for a moment there. Like here, yeah. So Colby Young, 6'5", 215. Another 6'4" guy. Kane Prather, yeah, I should have him higher too. But you can see there's a lot of guys 6'3", 6'4", 6'2". Brew McCoy. He had a nasty ankle injury last year. It'd be interesting. See, like right now I have him at 194. He could be somebody that can blast right up if he has a good year. I should have Ricky White higher than he is there too. Will Shepard, did Will Shepard, he went to, he's at Colorado now. So he was at Vanderbilt. So it'll be interesting what his numbers look like this year. 6'3", 6'3". Bo Collins, he should have a good year. Here's an interesting guy to keep an eye on, which is the Corey Clark, University of Texas, San Antonio. Knee injury 2 years ago, tried coming back this past year, and 2023. Didn't work out. Shut it down, and I guess he's coming back for another year. Probably one of your biggest sleepers, probably going into the year that everybody's probably counting him out just because of how injured he is. But you kind of see like what I'm talking about here, which is we're not seeing too many 5'10s. We're seeing like 6'2 kind of being the average, and then plenty of 6'3, 6'4, 6'5s. So it's a big class right now. Like, I mean, big. Well, not in terms of just number, but we're looking at guys that are just larger than usual. Big 6'4", 6'5 guys, and that's not considering all the move tight ends that we can probably put in there. Oh my gosh. Let's go to top. Actually, that's an interesting thing to talk about. Is tight ends. Because like everybody's gonna say Colston Loveland's worth the first round draft pick, but would he be an early? Could he fall into early day 2 for the Patriots? Obviously 6'5", 230, 237. He's basically just another large receiver, so that's another guy to consider. Lachey, he would be more of your comprehensive tight end. Mitchell Evans, I like a lot. I would love for them to pick him up maybe in the 3rd round. 6'7", 270. Doesn't move like it though. Like he blocks. Obviously, super strong, very powerful. But he's kind of your tight end to keep an eye on for that finally filling in that big tight end. Aron Gadsden, which I'm struggling to find here, from Syracuse. He's a beast. Guy from Mississippi, there he is. He's good. Oh yeah, this guy from Clemson. Obviously been overshadowed for several years now at the tight end position at Clemson. He's solid. Brant Kuithe from Utah, 6'2", 222. He's an H-back, but he's actually he's not very fast or very elusive, but he runs really good routes, and he's a hell of a blocker out of the backfield. Not that we're looking for that anymore. I think with Jaheim Bell, I think that's definitely taken care of. Yurashek from, actually, I think he transferred, but he was at Stanford. Tight ends is a pretty loaded group, too. I have to clean this up a lot more for you guys. He's beast, yep. I have to consider him. He's as athletic. He might be one of your best athletic freaks in the whole draft. Another guy, look, Justin Jolie. These are it's again. These are guys who are going to go undrafted this year, and I'm already looking at them and saying like these guys could be dangerous. It's another loaded draft, and thankfully it's not a repeat of last year. The only things that are going to take steps back are going to be your quarterback class and then the very, very top of your wide receiver class. So you're not going to have Marvin Harrison Jr.'s. You're not going to have Malik Neighbors or Dunze's, but you might have a lot of Jalen Polks. That sort of level of receivers, which is fine. There's Gadsden. I mean, I have it 5'15". I got to move him up dramatically. But he should be, if he came back, he got injured last year, I think he was a footless Frank injury. So if he comes back, he's somebody to keep an eye on. I mean, I have Jack Howell, who's a legitimate safety, and I have him ranked at like 524. It's another loaded draft, guys. This guy's like 6'6", yeah. Crazy, crazy draft. Oh, vertical threat. All right, so McCorkle. We need a tight end next year. What are you looking at for us? No blocking T. I mean a vertical threat. Well, the guy that can I mean, obviously it's Loveland from Michigan, who's probably your best receiving tight end. And I mean, would you call him like a perfect seam ripper? Probably not. But he's very agile. He's 6'5", 237. He's probably your top dude. Like he played. I mean, it's just because of where he lines up and where they put him on the depth chart. But he's just an oversized receiver. Who else? Lachey, even though he's 6'6", 252, very. I mean, minus the only problem with him is his injuries. He'd be your top dude if he wasn't injured all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but he's been injured several times. Delp is another guy that's very. I mean, these are a lot of these guys. Sorry, Oscar Delp is another guy from Georgia who are athletic. Yeah, and then you start to get into. I'd go with a Ron Gaston from Syracuse to be the next guy that's probably your really like vicious potential receiver, vertical threat. Throw it up there, high points the ball. Not just like an end zone target, but like actually middle of the field athlete, right? I like somebody you have. Oh yeah, Mason Taylor. He's another good guy. He's another one to keep an eye on. Dupree's a good one. Yeah, but yeah, now we're getting down to guys that are kind of like comprehensive. Like they're athletic enough. They'll be able to catch the ball everywhere on the field, but they're just not as devastating as probably 4 or 5 guys I mentioned above. So that would be my answer to that question. Is there's about 4 or 5 guys, and they're definitely going to be. I mean, they're good too. They're not just like big receivers. Like they can block. But obviously the top guy would be Colston, and then yeah, I think maybe Dupree probably be your next best there. What's another one that's a good one to keep? Oh yeah, you know what's actually going to be a great one this year? Safeties. Running backs, safeties. Because when we think about it, guys, like they've done a decent amount of re-signings, right? And they signed guys that we need, and it's kind of alleviated some of the risk. But as far as I know, we had like out of like 91, we had like nearly half the team at the beginning of the off season. We had half the team up for contract at the end of this year. So we had like we didn't even have a full roster being able to be fielded next year if we didn't sign anybody back. So there's still you still need to consider D tackles, and that's not just because you got Farms is going to be up, Roberts will be up, I think Watts is up. So like I mean all your D tackles minus Barmore. So I mean now Godchow's good again, but like yeah, Barmore's those 2 guys are up in the air now. So D tackle's one to look it out. Thankfully, D tackle really deep. Safeties still don't have that legitimate deep safety. And I know we've been looking at Hawkins. Don't know what's going on with Marty Mapu. I don't think he's quick enough or agile enough to really handle that. But Hawkins and Bledsoe, that's basically it for deep safeties. So I know Del Pettis actually is legit, but I haven't heard too much from him. Thankfully, next year, with terms of safeties, there's plenty of guys. Should be a strong group there in terms of like free safeties, big, heavy, like strong safeties, not that good, but that like legitimate deep field, center field safeties, plenty of those guys this year, and they're all freak athletes too, which is nice. What else is taking a step up this year? Well, this one's not that hard, but the running backs, if there's one guy you want to really keep an eye on, is probably Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. I think Ollie Gordon's a more well-rounded running back, but as a receiving back, this is it. So if we're looking for somebody to be antagonistic to Stevenson and Gibson, it's going to be this guy. Now, he might actually make it into the first round, and I wouldn't touch him to the third. But if he does get there, it's almost impossible. You have to take him because he's a hell of a route runner. I just think he's good ball security, super fast. Other things to consider. What else do we have to worry about? Tight end, safety, D tackles. Edge is always going to be an issue. I know we talked about wide receiver. Tackles we've gone over. But yeah, just in general, it's like it's going to be another good year to suck. So, I mean, the Patriots are going to have a rough time. There's plenty of good I mean, like this guy's. I mean, even if you have a shot at getting Clay Webb as another guard, is like that guy's. He in that last year he probably went in the top 50. He might not make it until. Yeah, he might be a late day 3 pick at this point. Sebastian Castro is another guy to keep an eye on for safety / nickel. Makuba, supposed to run like a 4-2, plays nickel, plays on the perimeter and corner, but they're using him as a safety this year. So a guy to keep an eye on. He's not very big, but he's a good tackler. So linebackers, that's an interesting one to look at. Actually, linebackers with edge rush capacity. Oh, that's going to give me that. Let's actually go to Rutgers. Where is he? Tyreen Powell. There he is. So here's that's a name to keep an eye on. It's Tyreen Powell. Ty French is awesome. Speed guy for an edge. Same thing with Steve Linton. Actually, let's look at the edge names in here. We haven't do edge yet. Yeah, most of these guys, they're in there from stats. I haven't watched too much tape on them yet. He should be a lot higher than where I have him. He should be probably top 100. Yeah, he's legit. He should be higher. Sorry that I'm doing this so slow. Yeah, he should be much higher too. Look at that. 6 edge rusher, 6'6", 270. He has good stats, but man, I mean, he just hasn't had a shot really to play too much. That's the problem when you go to LSU. It's just having a shot to play. Got some big names in here, guys. Yep, he's good. I can't believe I have Mason Richmond this far down right now, but he's started a few years at Iowa. This will be his 3rd year at Iowa. Anyway, so what I wanted to do is actually go to do some mock drafts, which I know everybody loves to do. But if you guys have any positions or names from college football, let me know. We can take a look at that for drafts. But I haven't actually checked what PFF has had in a long time. I mean, Starks is I mean, he's good, but ranking him as 3rd overall on the big board right now. Oh, see, they have him higher up there too. Yeah, I like Deion Walker too. Wow, they have him 8th. James Pierce, Travis Henry. I don't know if Travis Henry's going to really translate to the NFL as much as I think most people. I mean, as a corner he might, but I don't think he's going to as a wide receiver. He's an interesting guy to follow. He had 8 sacks last year. Really? Jeez, that's almost perfect. He's very raw when I watched him play. So they have Amari and Hampton that high up. See, I would like to get Amari in just because, obviously, with Drake. Oh, by the way, just so you guys are thinking, other names to keep an eye on. I know we kind of blasted through that on the waiver wire watch list. 2 names I didn't mention that probably really could actually be back in play. Well, one of them to be away. Actually, Tez Walker could be a potential waiver wire pickup. So if you're looking for any sort of connection there, who was the guy who played with wide receiver who played with Drake at UNC, and then Malik Cunningham might be a waiver wire guy you can pick up. Now I know it's a different offense, but interesting to think about. Now this is an interesting one to watch. Abdul Carter. He played linebacker last year, and now they moved him out in the spring ball out to edge, and it looks like PFF got word of that. So he, I think, would have all those people that have been up there so far. I think he has they have him positioned. I think he can easily be a top 10 pick. So. Oh, yeah. I forgot about him. 6'6", 325. All right. Josh Simmons. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think he's that big, but Landon Jackson, he's an interesting guy. This is one of my favorite edge dudes. I thought he was going to come out last year, but he did not. So he's probably if I have my edge pick, it would be, honestly, if you just want to talk about it, it's probably, you're going to hate it. Well, maybe you don't hate it, but offensive tackle, first round, edge in second, and wide receiver in the third. Unless you're absolutely in love with what Tech McMillan can do. But, Mika Buka, I don't know if he's a wide receiver one. I don't know that. So, he's pretty good too, right? 6'5", 3'3". McCorkle. I am huge on Will Campbell. I know a lot of guys. I threw that name out last year. I know a lot of guys are big on him because his name just keeps. I mean, he will lose battles because someone just outmatches him physically in some ways, but it is hard to constantly win against him. Like, you might win a rep, but even the best guys putting on their best game eventually get gassed by him. Like, that's one of the weird things that, like, you don't think about an offensive tackle versus edge, which is losing that, like, attrition battle or just lose that fade at the end of the game. Will Campbell looks exactly the same throughout the whole entire game and the whole entire year. He just never. Again, he'd lose reps. There's like some notable games where he struggled against Alabama the last couple of years, but which, let's just be honest, right? I mean, you're always going against a absolute freak edge rusher at Alabama, but yeah, in terms of technique, you're not going to get any better than Will Campbell. His build is he's 6'6", over 300, but if you look at him, he carries like the 300 is not in the belly. Like, he is he's pretty well balanced. Like, you're not going to tip him over. He doesn't, like, again, it's because he will lose a physical battle, but you're not going to trick him. So you're going to have to run him over. You're going to have to figure out a way to do that, which you don't do often because he's so technical. I don't think he's an absolute monster beast in the weight room where he's going to put up crazy numbers. But if you watch his feet and just the cerebral part of him, absolutely perfect. In terms of left tackles the last few years, I mean, technically he's better than Joe Alt. And I mean, I thought Joe Alt was a top 3 athlete, top 3 guy last year in terms of where they should be. He doesn't. Yeah, he does not have those really long arms, but it's long enough. It's long enough. It could be another Peter Skoronski situation, but I mean, I don't have any official numbers on him, but yeah, it could. I mean, it's definitely not as short as Skoronski's, which were really on that, like, just on the line. So, and you know, that's one of the things which was this past year, which, you know, getting Patrick Paul and just getting that guy who's like 6'7" with like 36-inch arms and just being over and done with it, and hopefully you put him in like the back room for like a year or two, and hopefully he just really gets up to speed and he's really that good. Yeah, I believe his arms are 33 inches, which is fine. It's not great, but I mean, like, the arm length is probably why he might get beat once in a while, and someone can get in there with really super long arms and is strong enough to move him. But you're going to have the long enough arms, and you're going to have really good ways to, like, you know, speed to power or just straight bull rush. You're going to have, like, that's how he gets beat. Spin moves, doesn't matter. Anytime you start taking steps and you're trying to maneuver your body, he's got you. Anytime you expose the middle of your chest, he's got you. I don't know about higher ceiling. I mean, Banks is a big dude. And that would be the question, which is like, that's a good. I mean, that's a really good question. Who's better in terms of ceiling? I might have to do it. I might have to do an analysis on that. 6'4", 324. I mean, I can't imagine him having. And that's what I think about Kelvin Banks, is like, he played left tackle, but I feel like when I watch Kelvin Banks now, he plays, he's a gnarly right tackle in how I watch how I see him play. He's just very technical, so they moved him on left. But his demeanor and how he plays was more of like a right tackle. Emory Jones is like a solid right tackle. This guy's an absolute hoss. He's an interesting. Tyler Booker started as a tackle, but now plays guard. He came in as a tackle, but 6'5", 352. You want to talk a freak athlete? This dude. And then that's what I hate about this, which is like, sometimes you just find, like, it's like, oh yeah, guard. Who wants to talk about guard anymore? Blake Miller's good too. He's a big dude. Xavier Truss is another guard from Georgia who can play tackle, but got moved in. Simmons, again, right tackle, played some left last year. But I guess that's a major concern here, is like, if you're finally starting, you're looking for that left tackle. So say they go out. Yeah, Wallace has plenty. I mean, Wallace should, like, he's fine. Like, that's the thing. You don't need to have 35-inch arms to be a great left tackle. And all those guys, like, that have those massive 35-inch or like 85-inch wingspans, they've used it their whole life. Like, that's the you know, not that they're not technical, but a lot of those guys that have super long arms and massive wingspans, they've relied upon it so many times, and they get the NFL and they're not amazing. You know, so. And you know what? Here's the thing. If Caden Wallace is a good left tackle, and we don't have to get one next year, great. Like, if it really is, this is the year you just go after, like, Tech McMillan, go for it. Freaking go for it. Or if you have to figure out a way to get Deion Walker, great. I would be totally fine with going after James Pierce and getting a legit edge rusher that's younger. That's just, this guy's an absolute menace. He's a little bit lighter, speed rusher, but he's got the power. Same thing with the Scourton guy. See how he does at the end of the year. See how his numbers come up. But this is a year for edge rushers. There's a year for D tackles. It's a year for safeties. A decent amount of wide receivers. Jack Sawyer's another really good edge rusher that you can keep an eye on. I like how he plays. Sorry that I'm all over the board, guys. Landon Jackson, he's interesting. He's like 6'5", right? 6'7", 282. That's a big boy. Super long arms. Dante Corleone, if you're looking for an interior rusher. Now, he's the shorter side. He's not like the Barmore super long. He's kind of got the Darnold effect where he's like 6'1", 320, but he's a freaking like spark plug power. He'll lift you up. Like, he gets under you, he's gonna win. Anyway, so let's actually maybe do a few of these and we can talk some strategy. I know we're way out, but it kind of gets you the idea, which is it's another one of those years when you're going into the year and you're like, this is a good draft class. It's not going to be that bad to suck. Oh yeah, Bryson Nesbitt. I forgot about him. There you go. See? Now, he'd be an interesting linebacker. He's a little bit thinner. He's more of like a, I think he's like 220, right? 225. Good coverage linebacker. Something that we're still missing. He'll probably have the most tackles in the whole entire NCAA this year. Guy's a freak. How many did he have last year? Only 93. Oh, this guy's a monster too. I don't know why he's not higher up. I'd like to get him. All right, let's do some drafts and see what we got here. Have some fun and talk some strategy. Yeah, you know, like, good point about like getting the first strike in. And that's the thing. You get those guys with the long arms, and then they go for that first strike because they're like, hey, I'm just going to own this, and I'm going to get my first strike in, basically put it to rest. But then all of a sudden now you get to the NFL where edge rushers are not going in with a game plan, the reaction, right? So it's not rep, it's reactive. So when your edge rushers are not going in and just trying to execute, they basically been told by their defensive coordinators, you just go in there and do your thing, right? You're part of the scheme, but we're allowing you to do your own thing. So they're reactive rather than repetitive. So they're going to be going on what the offensive tackle gives them. They're going to close in on the offensive tackle, make the offensive tackle make the move, and then they, whatever they go off that's what they react to, right? So now it's been an arms race of how many times you can, the good offensive tackles at the upper level are now throwing essentially jukes in to try to elicit some sort of move from the edge rusher, and then they make the move off them. Yeah, I would love to get Deion Walker. Even if we still had, I keep saying that we still have Barmore. Hopefully he's able to come back. Now, getting into my history on this is like, you're looking at, unless it was very small and they can come up with a reason why, but if it's because of his genes and who he is as a person, they do genetic testing and they realize this guy his genetics says he can possibly get reoccurring blood clots, that could be the issue. That's where you get scary, where this guy could be told you have to be on blood thinners indefinitely for the rest of your life. Now, as an athlete, typically that would show up earlier at some point. So my hope is where there's other like athletes and NFL players in general, it's a reaction to something that's happened. Just like David Andrews, where you get put him now, you lose him for a year. Now his was in the lungs. We still don't know where. That's pulmonary, and I believe. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I believe David Andrews was pulmonary. So that's really scary because that's basically you're pretty close to dying, potentially, obviously. But if it's depending on where it was and if it was from an impact, like you got hit, get some blood clotting in the area, and then it gets loose, and then it gets scary, and it blocks up the circulation in the appendages or something like that. Now that's not necessarily as scary because maybe it's just a result of some sort of trauma, which is possible, or overexertion is also another one. It's just determining if it's because of something really freakish happening, or is he predisposed to get blood clots. If he's predisposed, he might be on blood thinners the rest of his life, which is scary because that means he's done. And now we are looking at trying to find Deion Walker. Anyway, enough talking. Let's try to get some of these in here. I'd also take Mason Graham too, but I think he'll be gone. If this is what they thought, let's just say like who's calling? Going back to 7. Yeah, let's just do that, right? So let's just do that, just to get a couple extra names in there. So we lost Will Campbell. Could we get out of this in some way? Yeah. Now, would I take Will Johnson if he's that far down? Not yet. James Pierce, I'd consider taking. Don't worry, guys. I'm just trying to get names in here, see what we can get. This is not a legitimate attempt or anything like that. Okay, so I'm gonna go Kelvin Banks. See what we got for wide receivers. Sturdivant, so we'll go Sturdivant in 3rd round. They don't have good names in here yet. I'm going to go with Ashton. Tight ends. Oh, yeah, I forgot. He transferred. He's pretty good, too. Princely. He's from Florida. Ole Miss won the transfer portal this year. They brought in some big names. Oh, yeah, Kenneth Grant. So you want to talk about another interesting D-tackle to think about. He's a big... Yeah, I mean, he's not a good pass rusher, but... Right. Yeah, what's interesting, McCorkle, about, I mean, the 5 week, you say 5 weeks, but it's to be on the blood thinners for probably a few months, and then once you're off them, it takes a while to essentially get everything else up and running. It's I don't know. I mean, just to back, I actually had one from sitting at my desk for so long, and I was lucky. It got loose and my heart just chewed it up, which is scary because I mean, yeah, it got distributed throughout the rest of my body, and I was lucky. It wasn't major or anything like that, but it took me a while to get back up and running. And that wasn't, the doctors were just like, yeah, you're fine, I guess. But because mine was from a specific reason, and I'm sure his is from a specific reason, so I'm hopeful he's able to come back. That's why I'm not freaking out about it, but I don't know about him being able to come back for. Jeez. I mean, it'd be maybe after Thanksgiving if everything goes well, but it just takes so long. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how long it takes you to get off it. If it's dependent on how long you're on it too, I don't know. Well, it's painful. First thing, if you get like if it's in your pulmonary, like it's in your chest, like your lungs, it's like you're having a heart attack essentially. In many ways, it could. That's the problem. It could turn into that. Like it gets into your lungs, gets into your heart, blocks it up, and so. But when it's on your appendages, like in your body, like your legs, it'll swell pretty quickly too. So because what happens is the blood's going right, it's getting pumped, but then it's getting blocked up, and essentially those vessels and everything else around it just swell. So essentially, it looked like from like a certain part of your body just blows up like an edema. Bruising, it's hot, it gets really hot, extremely painful. So, and it can be a sports injury, but if you have anybody in your family that's ever had one, just keep an eye on yourself, because that's usually the big issue is if it's genetic, like people who just have those blood disorders, and there's a lot of them. Just like how there's some people that their blood can't clot, there's the other way around. Works both ways. It's genetic. It's just the way it is. Adaptations to your environment from your genetics from ancestry a long, long time ago. But if you're just in general, if you're sedentary for a long time, so if you're sitting still and your legs are like mine, I was just straight working for days and days and days, barely getting any sleep. My only like movement was just getting up and going to the bathroom or going to sleep. Getting food, and I got it. So it wasn't major or anything like that, but it was enough to, make you realize I have a timer now to get up and move off of my desk, get out and do stuff. And I'm an active person. It's just for those few days, like I went really hard, and that's what happens. So it's scary enough to, you just need to take care of yourself and be aware that if you another thing is if you hit yourself. So like example, like so Barmore, someone like say someone kicked Barmore or stepped on him or something like that, it can be like that. Just as because it just nailed the blood vessel right where it was, and that can be the cause of it. It just the blood vessel burst, there's some clotting, and that clot and bruising is, caused, essentially it was cut, like, so it's essentially scabbed over, and then now you have a blood clot, and that's another way. So there's a lot of other reasons, but very painful. So even on the like small little like just bang your arm against something, just if it starts to hurt and it's like that's a little bit overreaction, just like bang your arm. Just don't be stupid. Go to the doctor, especially if it's something that doesn't seem right, out of the ordinary. All right, so now that we've got that medical thing to put aside, now I don't know. Actually, Kevin Winston Jr. I'm not really well versed on. He's a deep guy, so I'll put him on the list. I'm not going to draft him, but I'll have to put him on the watch list for us. So we have an edge guy. Jabbar Muhammad, he's solid. Kenneth Grant would be a good one to keep an eye on. Let's go by position here. We haven't picked up a wide receiver. Mitchell Evans. Oof. He's good. So I'm still trying to get him right towards the end there. But man, would I want Mitchell Evans too. Shit. Safeties. Is Makuba in here? Yep. So we'll go Makuba here. Oh, Xavier Watts. Oh, shit. I won't get him. What about Sebastian Castro as a corner? Do they have him in their corner? They have him in here too. He can play safety. Oh yeah, he's in there too. Jesus Christ. They got people this year. What else do we need? Running back. Taj Brooks, he's legit. Not sure on most of these other guys. Raheem Sanders, yeah. Hopefully he comes back. He got injured last year, but the year before, and he's a former wide receiver. He's a bigger dude. Interesting guy to possibly pick up. Travion Henderson's not a bad one to pick up right now, too. Maybe we'll go Travion. He can play some edge. So can he. Stockhouse. Riley Mills, also a very good edge rusher. We got some stuff going on here. All right, let's just finish this out. Look at wide receivers real quick. Evan Stewart's probably better. Restrepo's really interesting. He's a slot guy, so slot. He's your X. What do you think? What are we thinking, guys? How are these linebackers looking? Oh, Barrett Carter at 73 and Stutzman at 75. Oh, unbelievable. Oh man, it's gonna be fun draft, dude. We're probably no. This time last year, I was thinking that. Well, last year this draft was pretty solid, but a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that were going into this draft or last year's draft that came back this year. So we might have that same thing with a lot of juniors that again go back to being a senior because go back for another year. So it's loaded right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bunch of guys go back again. Just get the same thing that happened last year. All right, so this is a hard one to do. I like Travion. Yeah, Torrey Horton, I think, is still there. I like him, but I just don't see him as a. He probably out of the slot. I guess he'd be good, but he's not just a 6'2", 190. I just don't. He's elusive. He's one of my favorite receivers in this draft class. But if I'm looking at guys that can like potentially be your X receiver with a year, because like now we didn't get the top wide receivers, so now we're looking for some guy can come in, can play, but is not your immediate alpha one. This is probably one of your few guys that can do it as an athlete. Now DM Burks would be another guy who can do as well. He's a bigger dude. Oh wait, who am I thinking of? Not DM Burks. He's 5'9", 189. Who am I thinking of? It's the other guy from Oklahoma. Who am I thinking of? Huh, they're not far off from me. Sorry guys, I'm all over the place right now. Oh, I guess I have DM Burks as 5'11". They have him at 5'9". Nick Anderson. That's the guy I was thinking of. Nick Anderson. Yeah, what was interesting about 2024 was it missed. I think you're probably going to see a lot of guys who got drafted on day 3. You're probably going to see more guys that are going to be like the Puka Nakua and Demario Douglas type of dudes this year, and probably not from those positions. It's going to be from running backs. It's going to be from offensive linemen. It's going to be from corners. It's going to be those type of guys. Kind of. It's not going to be like as bad as like say the 2023 draft, which was absolutely brutal in terms of depth. And think about this, and everybody's going to hate me for saying this, which is think about how well the Patriots drafted in 2023 compared to other teams. Some other teams don't they're like they cut most of their 2023 they're on like practice squads, or they're struggling to find work these days. The Patriots minus obviously Amir Speed, who's now in the Colts, but it looks like Amir Speed, and then Mafi might be the only guys that really probably have no shot at being on the Patriots this year, or at least on the 53. But Gonzo, Keon White, Marte is probably going to make it in some respects. See what happens with him with his injury and getting back to things. But Jake is out. Yeah, I didn't think about Jake, but Jake Andrews being out, Ryland probably going to make it. If not, whatever. But then Booty's all of a sudden showed back up. Obviously, Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas showed up last year. And looks like Bolden is probably going to make the team in some respect. Both has one of the best kick returners in college football in the last several years, but then he can play the perimeter. He was a slot corner at Jackson State, so he's got versatility, and he's probably going to be on kickoff and kick return. So he'll probably make it. So last year's draft class was a big hit for the Patriots. Let's see if this year does it. My concern this year is that most of our 4th round day 3 guys are probably not going to be on the 53. I don't think. I mean, they might find a way to get Layden Robinson through. I doubt it, but so they might have to find a way to put him on there. I guess here's the thing. I guess you put him on the 53, but there might be better guards that are on the practice squad than him. Anyway, what was I at? Oh yeah, we're back here. Still stuck here. Do we go with this wide receiver here, or do we go? We already got the edge. Oh, center. Didn't even think about that. Not going to look at one now, but no, they don't even have him in there. Interesting. Now, one of the centers I'm looking at is Bryce Foster from now at Kansas. He was at Texas A&M, I think. Yeah. I really like him. They don't even have him in here. I would look at him maybe on 3rd or 4th round. Oh yeah, I forgot about Bryce Behringer. Yes, yeah. Essentially, as your best impact. Charles Turner's legit. I mean, I don't know what the deal is. We'll see. Well, here's the problem with. All right, so Mafi is not going to fit in the system that they're doing now. So the center is not going to be doing as much pulling and much being as Like he's gonna be grabbing his guy within the first step or two, right? They're not expecting him to make massive moves to the second level or making any sort of massive athletic moves to get to a block. So I think that's probably they're like, well, if this guy's gonna be able to play, this is what he's gonna have to do. I don't know what I heard he looks a little bit thinner, so maybe that's the thing. Maybe he's gonna be a little more athletic there. In terms of strength and being able to bulldoze and bulldog people, yeah, I mean the guy can still play that. So I think they can obviously easily get him through to practice squad, and I think they should. All right, so I'm gonna finally make my move here. I promise. Actually, Denzel Burke would be smart. I guess we'll just go with this Winston guy for a bit. Oh, that's tempting. I'm moving fast, I'm sorry. I'm stuck on it for too long. Nesbitt, we're going to hold off on. Taj Brooks, I'd love to get here. Guy's built like a tank. A little bit older, though. See, like, Barrett Carter would be a smarter pickup, I think, as an but same thing with Stutzman, too. He's a bigger dude. Guy can hit. I think Sebastian Castro is where I'm going to go. Get into a slot corner / safety. Oh, actually, wait, never mind. We already got one. So let's do. How's our D tackles look? See, here's the thing. Like, I'll tell you this. Like, this is how stupid it is for some of these guys to, like, kind of keep coming back. Now, I know there's the NIL deal, which is important. But Nazir Stackhouse probably would have been a day 2 pick, early day 3 pick. He's going back, and he's basically right where he was. Like, he's in the same spot. Same thing with Shamar Turner. Like, should have just came back. Should have just went into it. Most of these guys are just coming back. Should have just went into it and went to the draft last year. But they came back for NIL Milne, and now they're basically running the risk of being drafted like late day 3 versus early day 3. Sorry, I'm just blasting through these. Okay, PFF, let's get it. All right, let's just let's do a no nonsense mock like draft now. Sorry. No trades. Oh, they took it from us. Oh, balls. They have him pretty high, don't they? Look at that. He might be somebody to watch. I haven't watched too much tape on him. I'll have to probably go with an edge guy. JT's probably You're probably more well-rounded edge guys to grab. Fringe first rounder in the first place, so we'll go with him. Probably Trey Harris. Oh, Terrence Ferguson. Oh my gosh, I forgot about him. He's not 0 inches tall, though. Yes. See, they have him way up on the list. I don't even have him in like the 200s, but maybe I should shut up and go take a look at that. Yeah, JT's legit. Both Ohio State edge rushers are legit. I'm going to go with Luke, though, for this time. Because then we can get like a guy who can play. He's more of like a Hunter Henry, but that's fine. Okay, you can hate my picks. I should have gotten Tech. Yeah, you're probably right. I guess we can do that. Let's see what we do if we get wide receiver first. So if we go Tech, can we get an awesome offensive tackle right away? I mean, Jonah can play. Maybe he has a good year. And then you can pick up an edge here. See, that's scary. That might be true. Oh, Tyler Barron. Is it the same one that played at Tennessee? Yeah, it must be. He's good. He's pretty good. Kaimon Rucker, he's got good, yeah, I guess he had a good year last year too. Not very impressed by his, like, physical stature, or his physical abilities, but like, he finds sacks, savvy. What would I do here? I'd probably go after Stutzman, but that's just me. They have Noah this high? My gosh. Oh, maybe I should shut up. He's got good stats. He's just that he's 5'10", 194. I mean, come on, guys. Like, he's very athletic, and maybe he's just like, what's his face, Kyler. What should we do? Brady Cook. Oh, so now they have. I wonder. I actually haven't watched or heard about Georgia's, or even followed Georgia's spring. I know he's good, but then Xavier Truss played guard last year, I think. Oh, he went out to right tackle. Or maybe started at right tackle. I can't remember. So, okay. No, this is a big dude. Jeez, I wouldn't mind picking up Xavier Truss. Trussell Bridge. Is Devin Neal that good? I didn't think so. PFF sometimes is like absurd. I remember last year it was they had like Tez Walker like rated in the teens last year. Like we're like in the low 20s on the big board at one point. I was like, are you like? I know you guys are stat driven, but isn't there like a human override that says like, yo, I've watched tape. This guy's not a top. This guy's not a first round draft pick. This guy's not that good. J. Michael. Yeah, I guess we'll go. Oh no, we already got the. So what are we doing? Edge, or safety? I think I'd go with Sebastian here. I would probably rather want to get him on day 3, but Rod Moore's legit too. Makuba too. All right, so slot corner. Linebackers. We don't need it, but probably better. Oh my gosh. I guess tight end then. Go with Tyler Warren. Since we missed out on the guy I probably would have wanted to take there. Probably another bad draft. Yeah, I know. It's bad. I know. Thanks. Actually, let's take a look at the roster here. And then we'll close it out. So I think the two big things that I've been looking at is obviously the concern over Barmore, and then if they have to get rid of Judon. Just to go over Kellen. Kellen Diesch is not bad. He is one hell of a run blocker, but he's got like 32 and like a half-inch arms. So a dude who's like 6'7", but his arms are that short. He's got like, that's the thing. Like he's tall and he's athletic, so he's good at that outside tackle position. He probably will fit the system. Not to mention he played with the Browns last year, so he is a Peters connection again. But it's interesting because he's a really good run blocker because he has to end up blocking very, very much like a guard. Like he locks onto you, he just bulldogs you around. But I don't know if like you can rely upon him to be like a really good left tackle for you. So it's interesting like what they would want to do with him. Maybe they just think this is a good depth piece because he can play both left and right tackle. But to address the Barmore situation, the only guy that really can play very similar. Where is he? Oh, this is, Sam Roberts. Sam Roberts is probably the one guy in the roster that in many ways plays like Barmore. Very long, powerful, and he can play essentially, well, he can play inside, pretty far inside, but like obviously not 0-1 or even 3. But you're looking at like from 5s probably, and he can go all the way out to 9. So you can put Sam Roberts actually out on the edge if you wanted to. So he's similar to Keon White in that respect. And I guess Keon White would probably be another example of another person that can play just like Barmore. Not the same, I shouldn't say like just like, but are viable replacements. So do you go with Keon White playing more on the inside? Do you hope Sam Roberts can step up? I'm not sure. Now in terms of the losing Judon, I would probably start to look outside immediately. We have plenty of edge rushers, but they are just, if you're looking for the heavy-handed guy, which is what Judon is, he's athletic, but he's not a speed rusher. He's savvy and he's strong, and he has heavy hands. Keon White's the only guy I think on the roster right now that I can think of that would play very similar to that. O'Shane would be a decent replacement, I think, but he's a different style. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I think Vidarian Lowe, not that he's going to start or anything like that, but I know everybody hates Vidarian Lowe for having some bad games last year. Vidarian Lowe also had some really great games last year towards the end of the year, despite and being like injured and being on concussion and all that stuff. And another thing, if you guys are like so like vile against him, go look up on his backstory. He's a good dude. He's a guy you should be rooting for. And looks like he put some meat on his hips and his lower extremity. And watching some of the drills, he's definitely got the strike system down. So he did his homework. He looks good. He looks good. Now, he's not going to be perfect, but also keep in mind, guys, like Vidarian Lowe's 25 years old, right? This is what I always like to point out. Like, some of these guys, like Jalen Reagor's 25 years old, right? City So's 26. It's his second year, he's 26. He's older than Vidarian Lowe. He's older than Jalen Reagor, who's been in the league for 5 years, right? So everybody likes to jump on some of these guys that haven't like really had a great start to their like careers. Well, a lot of these guys started when they're 20. All these guys really like, even like now some of the guys we've gotten rid of over the last 2 years have like they're gone are primarily from injury. Like, if you want, I'm going to go on a little rant with like last year, the offensive line. And I know it's bad, and I know we haven't had, like, it wasn't great last year, but keep in mind, last year, what you would write down on paper this time last year, that offensive line never played together. It never played together. Someone was always injured, right? Onwenu came back from his ankle surgery. Riley Reef, constantly injured. Calvin Anderson, sick, then contusion. Trent Brown, in and out. Cole Strange started off injured, finished injured. I think not Jake Andrews. David Andrews was the only dude that like basically make it through unscathed. So it was a mess. I mean, we had City So playing like right tackle. I mean, that's how bad it was last year. Yeah, I mean, Vidarian Lowe is a legitimate, like, I wish they got him, like, a couple years ago, or 3 years ago now, in the draft. I think he was only, like, I think he was a 6th or 7th round pick. They didn't grab him. And he was one of those guys, he's sitting right there, he's like, this guy's actually a good guy, you know? And he can play both left and right. He's not awesome at everything, but just, a lot of these guys, you just gotta give them time. You know, the NFL it's a short-lived career because you often get told, like, either by the coach or unfortunately by some medical professional that, like, you're done. Or you become, like, too expensive and there's rookies that are coming in. And they're like, well, dude, you're not on a rookie deal anymore and you're not that much better, so you're gone. Like, there's a lot of people leave the league not hitting their actual peak skills-wise, you know? And a lot of that's just bad luck, bad injuries, bad timing, being on a team for several years that's been, like, in a rebuild and, you know, not be given, like, the proper, you know, tools around you to excel. It's just tough luck. Like, Mac Jones definitely is getting tough luck. You know, obviously Bill knew that basically right away, and they did not go all in with when Mac was here. And unfortunately cost Bill his job. Purcell, I guess, is legit, by the way. Very Godchow-esque. Anybody else to go over that's worth talking about? Wonder if, McMillan. McMillan, think about that. McMillan's probably one of your best linebackers on the team skills-wise, but dude has never played. This guy's been injured for, 3 years straight now? 4 years straight? That's like, you know, another thing's like Mafi. Like, everybody's going to beat up on Mafi. It's like, dude, just give him, like, he's 23 years old. And he's trying to learn center. Maybe he actually is a good center. Just give him, like, a freaking minute. You know, Nick Leverett, he's only been playing for 4 years. He's 26 years old. This guy can play literally every position on the line. It's a very young team. Jaquay's definitely underrated, and so is Wallace as wide receivers, by the way. It's just such a huge room that you don't hear too much about them. Azizi's actually a decent corner. I always thought he'd be a better strong safety if they got him to play it, but I don't think we need that on the team. Joe Giles Harris is actually awesome edge rusher as well. He's more of a linebacker, but he's got some edge rush capability. But look, he's only been actually, that might not be true. He's been in the league. Yeah, he's 27. I was gonna say I think he's been in the league a lot longer than that. Christian Ellis, good special teams dude. One of those underrated guys that Bill picked up last year. Just like Alex Austin, just like Rager. Who's the other guy? They picked up someone else I'm missing on that was a waiver wire pickup last year. That was good. Anyway, I think we'll. Oh, I've been trying to poke around. I cannot find what has happened to Jake Andrews. So if you guys, does anybody know what happened to Jake Andrews? I asked Mike Reese. I asked a few other guys. I can't. No one knows. I think I heard it was a thigh, so maybe hamstring. I'm wondering if he detached a hamstring or muscle or popped a quad, or really, he might have popped a hip flexor or something like that. Because, I mean, honestly, he's the only center on the team minus David Andrews. And keep in mind, like, wasn't he? Yeah, he was the first guy. He was the first guy on day 3 last year that they picked up, and he was arguably a top 3 to let's say top 5 center in last year's draft. Yeah, it's actually a decent squad this year, guys. I don't hate it. I like where it is for where they are in their development. Still missing that big time left tackle and the big time wide receiver. But I feel better about, even though we lost Trent Brown, I still feel better about this offensive line better than last year just because they're healthier. They're younger. Yeah, it's probably just because of Caden. Honestly, Caden Wallace and that City So hit. And you're still missing Cole Strange, which I know everybody's going to probably go out. Yeah, it's been under wraps, but I mean, everybody hates Cole Strange, but you know what's sad is that, let's think about this. Cole Strange was drafted essentially to be the guard in this system. This is the system that they got him for. So, Cole Strange hasn't had Cole Strange has not had an offensive line coach since being in the NFL. Yeah, I'll do a roster at some point. I don't know, because like, 2 things. I don't do this as like a journalistic thing. Like, I know these guys, like a lot of guys have to put out these things to put out content. Originally, this was working with some guys and using my experience to identify draft picks and all that stuff, and using information and screeners and all that stuff to essentially come up with that, and talking with a few guys on the inside there. But that's how this all started, and it's never been like, let's do this for the sake of content creation. So I don't know if I'll make it something at some point. Maybe I'll make a quick video just to like go over what I think is going to happen. But I wouldn't do that until, and it's not because I need to see who's playing. It always comes down to like injuries. Yeah, they have. But you know what? Honestly, I think here's two problems. One, Marte Mapu, to me, I've never seen him in. I've never been able. Maybe I'll go back and watch some of the special teams.
never been able to watch his like top end speed. And if you're a safety, you need to have some top end speed. Because I've watched all his Sacramento State, and it's him almost always entirely in the box. And it's because he's a vicious hitter. And I know a lot of people says he was a Duggar replacement. Like I'm not arguing that he wasn't, but like I was like, yeah, Adrian Phillips is definitely done, and Duggar could be gone too. He's just gonna come in and be a heavy hitter safety, and guard. I mean, to me, he's always like when I watch Sac State in terms of coverage, he's amazing against tight ends, which was the major downfall the last couple years for Adrian Phillips was he stopped being able to guard tight ends. He lost his twitch. His legs must have just fried. I don't know if he went through an injury and he got denervation in one of his legs. But seeing him going against like Mark Andrews was brutal. And I'm like, wow, they're gonna need to get somebody to like be able to cover him. And then I saw Marty Mapu. I'm like, oh, that's a smart move because that's what he's really good at in terms of his skills. He is a violent hitter. He can bring down some much larger targets than him. But I just don't know if he's like a legitimate deep safety or even playing that far back. He's comfortable. He's definitely always going to be a hybrid, and that linebacker / safety designation is exactly who he is. Finding a spot for him, because here's the thing: like, you take, and this is why, although I like Joe Milton as a quarterback. Joe Milton's valuable, but we didn't need Joe Milton. We didn't need Joe Milton. We don't need him now, and we might need a Joe Milton in like 2 years where you're trying to like find some depth and Jacoby might be done, but you didn't need Joe Milton because now you have to kind of essentially find a spot for Joe Milton on your squad. And then you wasted a draft pick on a guy that everybody's gonna he's good. I'm like I'm not saying he's bad, but you had Bailey Zappi, and people can hate Bailey Zappi, but guess what? Bailey Zappi as a college quarterback had a better career than Joe Milton, and also Bailey Zappi actually started games in the NFL. So if you need somebody to play backup, Bailey Zappi can do it. And I'm not saying he's better than Joe Milton, but now you have to find a way to try to keep him on the 53 because someone's probably going to pick him up if you try to get him through waivers. Which is I'd rather be worried about getting Marte Mapu because Marte Mapu there's no one who's going to play backup to Duggar, who is out at least one game a year, if not multiple games a year, and if Peppers is out, he can probably play that. See what I'm saying? They're so thin back there in terms of like heavy hitting strong safeties because although there's multiple ones on the roster, there's also multiple ones out there on the field each time. So that's my thing with Mapu is you eventually have to get him out there, and he's actually pretty good on special teams. But the question is he injured, and are they just gonna like start him off, put him on IR, and then try to Fugazi the whole, cut down August into September, and then try to bring him back some way. That way you can, because the quote unquote the initial 53-man roster, what they finally get there, getting all the cut downs. If that's what people are like trying to guess, it all comes down to injuries and what other teams need what and who you think you can't get through the waiver wire. It's less about who you think you really want to go through the season with. It's more about just like how do we keep who we want and who can we hold the breath on and hopefully make it through, because we know that player probably won't be picked up because the people who need that position doesn't fit that scheme. So our guy probably won't get picked up by them. So we can probably put them through. Whereas, some of these other guys, we wouldn't be able to put them through. So we have to keep them, even though they might not be who you think you want on your actual squad. So it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, every year when you think about what people overanalyze, and that's what their job is, to take very little information, guys. Like, they have to find hours of talking about football, about base. It was essentially nothing, right? I mean, you can, the only way you can survive doing that is talking about other teams and, massive hyperbole about what's going on at practice. Like, not to get into like my issues, but like this whole thing about offensive line and being shifted around. Like, I know you want to build chemistry, but you have to establish chemistry first. And how you establish chemistry is finding it. Like, you have to find the right combination. You're not going to build anything if it's not there, right? So they have to try these guys out to figure out who can do it. And then also the concussion protocol rate over the last 2 years points to offensive linemen. You're being out at least, like, David Andrews making it through last year without really being totally beat up is a miracle. But like City So being out multiple times, Cole Strange, Trent Brown, Riley Reef, Vidarian Lowe. I mean, our offensive line was so riddled. It's some of them being legitimate injuries, but the amount of concussions last year. So another thing you need to know is, all right, here's our offensive line, but those guys, that's not going to make it all the way through. You need to know who can play where and with what combination, because it's going to get beat up, right? You not only have to figure out who has the best like chemistry together and who's the best in terms of playing what position, but just like when all of a sudden it starts to like fall back on like break glass, like who's going to be how's City So play at right tackle anymore? I mean, that sort of thing. Can Wenu play at right tackle anymore with the system that they're doing? They have to figure those things out. So the combination thing, like, we don't have 50-something preseason practices anymore, especially padded practices. So they have to sit back and figure that stuff out. They're new system, new coach, new offensive line coach, a whole bunch of new players on the roster. And everybody who's been around that's been playing long hasn't really played in this type of offensive line or offensive system. So, yeah. Again, think about Mafi. Like, Mafi, not that I thought he played well last year at all. He struggled a lot, but like, they didn't draft him to do that. That was not the system they had him in. They drafted him from the old system. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Anything else to talk about? I'm all about getting rid of Juju. I hate to see him so beat up at so young of an age, but I think last year when word got out that his knee blew up after going to a Comic-Con in Japan, and on the way back his knee was blown up, that tells you that I'm assuming it was meniscus, whatever it is. He's got inflammatory. His genes point to him having inflammatory, I believe. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not done genetic testing with him, but like, some people just react to injuries, and they blow up and they inflame, and then they're constantly dealing with inflammation, and their nerves denervate, and they lose their twitch, and it's over and done with. And some people can have a massive injury, and they come back and they didn't lose anything because the inflammation barely stayed around, and they were able to get right back to rehab and all that stuff right away. Some people, it's just genetics. It's just the way it is. So I think, unfortunately, Juju, between the amount of massive concussions and bad injuries, I just can't imagine this guy really making a comeback. He's going to need some time. Sounds like, Keyshawn, but we haven't heard anything from the league. Since it didn't happen in the NFL, I don't think the league can really pounce on him for the gambling thing. It looks like his Liz Frank injury, which was what I believe what it turned out to be, which is essentially a break of one of those big cube bones in your foot, which is a pain in the butt because there's such little blood flow to them that when it happens, it's like, if some people initially they think it's plantar fasciitis because there's such little blood flow. There's not like massive inflammation. So they think you get like plantar fasciitis, and then you kind of have a bad limp, and it just doesn't get any better with any of the stretching or typical treatment options for plantar fasciitis. And they're like, you know what, maybe we should do an X-ray, and then all of a sudden they have like a line right down the middle of one of those bones, and it sucks because you have to like sometimes wear like this boot that helps send signals to your body to start like the rebuilding process and repair, and your foot, because the pain is so bad, your foot just loses all your twitch. And so I'm not surprised Keyshawn had such terrible testing. Not that he was ever a very fast person, but I could see why his stock dropped so badly from his testing, because the dude barely could like push off his foot. And the initial minicamp and then preseason from last year, he was running around with his foot was like running flat. He wasn't running on the balls of his feet at all. And this year, dramatically different. I mean, I'm sure he put in some work, but it's obviously the injury is healed up and his twitch is back. And the fact that he looks that good, despite going through, am I going to like the legal troubles of like I'm going to legitimate jail for a while, potentially. Maybe there is something to extract there, because he's very savvy. Like, he might not be like super fast or explosive all the time, but he finds soft spots in the defense. And the thing is that he's not easy to bring down. Like, you have to really hit that dude. He's a solid dude, and has really good he's good balance. So contact balance. He's very good in contested catch situations, which we've seen. So for me, if I'm worried about, like, I have no problem letting Juju go if you can still have Booty do it. KJ Osborne, we'll see what happens with him. Seems like the last few days he's been coming on. He's still relatively young at 27, so we need some veteran leadership in that room. He'd probably be it with him and Bourne. Be interesting what happens with Bourne. Obviously, he's not going to probably start the season. So it comes down to, do we bring on Booty? Do we bring on Thornton? And then do we bring on Rager? Yeah, Steelers dude's always... Yeah, I mean, Antonio Brown's probably... I mean, obviously he had the perfect hit, but Antonio Brown's probably one of the last guys I can think of that came from the Steelers that just did not get lit up all the time. You know what? You know what? No, I'll wait on that one. We'll do that next week. I'll go over wide receivers that we might be able to look at waiver wire. Not that we need it, because we have so many. It really comes down to me. It's all edge and D tackles for looking for waiver wire. But like, I mean, I'd also look at tight ends too, and a running back. The Jets. I think the Jets could probably be making massive amount of cuts. The Jets have missed on their like draft so much, so often, that, and they bring in so many, like, they're drafting and then also bringing in so many free agents that the turnover on that roster is like so crazy that this year I don't know, they actually brought in a decent amount of free agents, and they still have guys from last year's draft and this year's draft that probably not going to make the roster that are worthy of looking at. My two guys are Zach Kuntz and then looking at Izzy Abanikanda. Zach Kuntz being a big tight end, athletic tight end, and then Izzy being a very fast, agile running back. Another guy to actually look for a running back, which would be interesting, that could be a waiver cut, would be, or cut candidate at the end of the year would be, or at the end of the summer would be Pierre Strong, believe it or not. So, depends on what they're going to do with Chubb. I like Terrell Jennings.
I'm a big fan of them trying to get as many HBCU guys on this team as possible. Those guys are often really good athletes, but boy, dude, like I don't know if you guys have ever been through like HBCU like facilities and been around their athletic departments in general. Like those guys are like I mean, it's repressed. Like those guys are once they finally have their shot to play and have like all the supporting staff they need around them, those guys pop. Terrell Jennings, being from FAMU, might I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if he's going to make the 53, but he's definitely a guy to keep on the practice squad. Because when you watch him run, like he's not ultra fast or anything, but he gets up to speed, he maintains his speed, and he's aggressive. So all those guys just need a shot. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. I'll try to get the 1,000 list names out next week. I don't have too much time during the week. I got something started on Monday, so maybe I'll get to it. I'll try to do these, every Saturday once I have some time. It's pretty rough. Work's been tough. Anyway, if you guys have anything you want me to talk about next time, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.